This video is dedicated in memory to Vinnie Cooper, better known online as Vintendo Paul or 8-Bit Vintendo on YouTube. I first started talking to Vinnie back in 2015 as we were in a Facebook group together, and he was just a real genuine and really funny guy. We got to hang out at Too Many Games 2016 and 17, and he was just a really good dude who loved video games. A couple months ago, Vinnie was diagnosed with cancer, but he seemed to be doing better. I actually talked to him a couple weeks ago, and he was in good spirits and everything seemed positive, but unfortunately things took a turn for the worse, and Vinnie passed away this past weekend. I'll miss you, buddy, and I'll see you one day again. So the video game world has now been introduced to the PlayStation 5 and the Xbox Series X, two brand new consoles coming this holiday season. With a look at the PlayStation 5 launch lineup now etched in stone from first-party to third-party titles, along with Microsoft showcasing some third-party titles and a first-party presentation happening within a month, a big question I've seen and people have been asking me personally is, how will this impact the Nintendo Switch? Nintendo has been eerily quiet, and with rumors of no Nintendo Direct on the horizon in the next month or two, a lot of Nintendo fans are starting to wonder one thing: is the Nintendo Switch doomed with the upcoming launches of the PlayStation 5 and the Xbox Series X? Today we're going to take an in-depth look at the video game landscape and how these new consoles will impact the Nintendo Switch. What's going on, guys? I'm RGT85. If this is your first time on the channel, be sure to hit that subscribe button. But without any further ado, let's answer this question. Is the Nintendo Switch doomed? Is the Nintendo Switch in trouble with the PlayStation 5 and the Xbox Series X coming up on the horizon? So the way I want to do this video is I essentially want to split it up into two different parts, because I think both parts tell the full story of the PlayStation 5, Xbox Series X, and the Nintendo Switch relationship. The first part we're going to talk about is the hardware side of things, and then we're going to talk about the software side of things. So let's go ahead and get into the hardware side of things. Now, obviously, the PlayStation 5 and the Xbox Series X are powerhouses when it comes to raw power on these systems. The Xbox Series X will be the flat out strongest in terms of raw power, with 12 teraflops on board for the flagship model. And the PlayStation 5 is touting an advanced SSD system that allegedly is unmatched, even in comparison to SSDs available on PCs right now. Of course, the PlayStation 5 will have over 10 teraflops of power ready to be accessed as well. And then we have the Nintendo Switch, coming in at roughly 1 teraflop, meaning that on paper, the Xbox Series X is about 12 times more powerful. Of course, teraflops aren't the only standard of measurement when it comes to power on these systems, but for most, it's the most easily identifiable, much like the bit wars were back in the day. So on paper, the graphical gap between something like the PlayStation 5 and the Xbox Series X is obviously a huge jump than what the Nintendo Switch can bring to the table. But one thing everyone seems to be forgetting with this important piece of the equation is the price point. Teraflops and advanced SSDs don't come cheap, and that's the main reason why Microsoft or Sony haven't announced the price of their upcoming consoles. We expect them to be very expensive. Sony is of course offering two versions of the PlayStation 5, a digital version and a version that will play physical games as well. And it seems like more than likely the cheapest version of the digital system for the PlayStation 5 will probably come around the $400 price point at a minimum. Microsoft is allegedly also doing the same sort of thing with the Xbox Series X and the Xbox Lockhart, with many expecting the Xbox Series X to be the most expensive platform on the market when it launches. And then of course you have the Nintendo Switch. Of course, when the Nintendo Switch first launched 3 years ago at the $300 price point, the profit margins were pretty thin on the platform. But since then, technology has of course become more advanced, meaning that the costs to make a Nintendo Switch are much lower now than when it initially launched. A price cut to $250 for the standard Nintendo Switch system, either as a timed offer around the holidays or just a price cut across the board, would offer a much cheaper alternative to the next generation of consoles coming this holiday season. On top of that, that's not even taking into account that the Nintendo Switch Lite exists as well, coming in at just $200. We already know that the manufacturing for these new systems is going to be a bit stunted due to real-world situations impacting manufacturing times, so Nintendo could easily take advantage of this situation if they are able to ramp up production of their consoles. One of the reasons that Nintendo has always had dominance in the handheld market, with arguably lesser technology compared to other companies that were in that same market, is because of the lower price point of entry. And I feel like due to economic situations happening right now, this will play a significant role with the less than diehard gamers when it comes to purchasing a new system this holiday season for themselves or as a gift. Let's be real, the Nintendo Switch is obviously weaker than the PlayStation 4 and the Xbox One, which are currently on the market, but the system is outpacing the PS4 in terms of sales in the United States and has already taken over the global sales of the Xbox One in just a fraction of the time on the marketplace. But of course, the bigger story is when it comes to games for the Nintendo Switch. We're starting to see a lot of stuff for the PlayStation 5, we're starting to see a lot of stuff for the Xbox Series X, but then you have Nintendo who, well, they've just been really quiet. So price-wise, the Nintendo Switch will be fine as it offers a cheaper alternative to what these new consoles are doing. But one worry that I have seen come up a lot is when it comes to upcoming games, both in terms of first-party offerings from Nintendo themselves for the Nintendo Switch, and more importantly, third-party ports that will be available on the PlayStation 5 and the Series X. First off, let's take a look at Nintendo's first-party lineup for the 2020 year so far. This is probably the biggest red flag for a lot of Switch owners because unlike in past years with the system, we really don't know anything literally beyond the month of July for the Nintendo Switch. Deadly Premonition 2 and Paper Mario: The Origami King are the two Switch exclusives that we know about for the remainder of 2020 when it comes to Nintendo's involvement. And that obviously has a lot of people worried that Nintendo could just be coasting with the success of the Nintendo Switch thus far and not taking things very seriously. Of course, there is the fact that we pretty much know that there's going to be some large Mario celebration for his 35th anniversary, but until we see it and how it will end up coming to the platform, we can't really factor in how that will play a role. And that is probably one of the biggest areas of concern for the Nintendo Switch going into the holiday season because of this unknown factor. Now obviously a Nintendo Direct or a few trailers placed on their YouTube channel could easily shift the course of how this plays out, and it's pretty much guaranteed Nintendo is brewing up something, but some people still just don't like that unknown factor. But the real question many are having is a very valid one. Third-party games on the Nintendo Switch with the PlayStation 5 and the Xbox Series X looming on the horizon. Now obviously these systems are way more powerful than the Nintendo Switch like we already talked about, and that could become a deciding factor on whether or not companies decide to put specific games on the Nintendo Switch. We already know now that Resident Evil 8, which was of course unveiled during Sony's event, is confirmed to only be coming to the PlayStation 5 and the Xbox Series X, and not the PS4 and the Xbox One. So the shift between multi-platform games being on the current generation of systems to the future generation of systems is already happening with major IPs from third-party developers. Now of course we've seen some pretty ambitious third-party games on the Nintendo Switch so far with somewhat mixed results. We have games like Doom and The Witcher 3, which of course were PlayStation 4 and Xbox One titles that have come to the Nintendo Switch with both solid sales and most importantly, solid performance. Some games like The Outer Worlds, which I personally enjoyed, definitely started to show a strain on the Nintendo Switch hardware with a bit of a disappointing port in terms of graphics and performance. We have heard many companies tout that they feel like the Nintendo Switch still has untapped potential, and companies like Virtuos, Panic Button, and Saber Interactive have proved games can come to the Switch that are available on current consoles. Obviously, the shift to the PlayStation 5 and the Xbox Series X will further widen the gap of these third-party games. However, there are a few key factors that I think some people are missing out on and forgetting with this argument. First off, let's talk about Unreal Engine 5. The Unreal Engine 5 showcase was of course before the PlayStation 5 reveal, and offered a look at what the next generation of gaming was going to bring to the table, but theoretically speaking, that tech demo could work on the Nintendo Switch. The thing about Unreal Engine 5 is the thing like every other Unreal Engine. They are extremely scalable, and Unreal Engine 5 is already confirmed to work on everything from the PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X to mobile phone and devices. Would it look as good and have all the details that we saw in the trailer showcasing the engine? I mean, of course not. But all because that's what they showed with the engine doesn't necessarily mean that will be the standard with the engine, especially if you're someone who has watched Unreal Engine tech demo presentations throughout the years. Really, the most popular Unreal Engine 4 game is Fortnite, which as we know is getting shifted over to Unreal Engine 5 this holiday season. So considering how scalable the engine is, I don't necessarily think it would be a large detriment. But the final thing when it comes to third-party games and the PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X and Nintendo Switch is something that if you've owned a Nintendo system since the Wii, you're probably well aware of. A lot of these games won't come to the Nintendo Switch in the first place, regardless of how powerful the system was. A lot of Western developers, of course, put some dumbed-down ports of their games on the Wii, but the Wii U did a lot to hurt Nintendo's standing with third-party developers, especially the aforementioned Western developers. On top of that, you have the fact that when it comes to games that sell on a Nintendo platform, the best-selling games are always first-party titles. Let's look at the PlayStation 4. The top-selling PlayStation 4 game is Grand Theft Auto V, a third-party game, which sold about 20 million copies on the system. And in second place is Uncharted 4: A Thief's End, with 16 million units sold, on a platform with roughly over 100 million units sold worldwide. In comparison, let's look at the Nintendo Switch. The top two selling games are Mario Kart 8 Deluxe with nearly 25 million units sold, and Super Smash Bros. Ultimate with nearly 19 million units sold on an install base that is roughly half. When you scroll down the list of best-selling Nintendo Switch games, the first game that Nintendo had no involvement in terms of best-selling Switch games is Minecraft, with nearly 2 million sold on the platform. The fact is, a lot of third-party games don't sell all that great on Nintendo platforms anymore, which is off-putting to some developers. And you know what? That's okay. I think the one thing we learned here is the thing that everyone should already know. The Nintendo Switch is a different system than the PlayStation 4 and the Xbox One, or the PlayStation 5 and the Xbox Series X. It manages to tap into a bunch of different markets, from nostalgic people to Nintendo first-party lovers to indie game connoisseurs, and the hardware of the system is different enough with the portability aspect to make it stand out amongst all these powerful systems. The PlayStation 5 and the Xbox Series X will be battling it out, and just like the previous few generations that we have seen, Nintendo will just be in its own little corner, doing something a little bit different than the raw power games. Sometimes it works, like with the Wii, sometimes it doesn't, like the Wii U, but for the foreseeable future, the Nintendo Switch will be fine in terms of momentum, sales, and of course game releases. Really, 2022 will be when the Nintendo Switch will start to get into trouble, I feel. But by that time, we'll already be talking about the successor to the Nintendo Switch, and whatever that will bring to the table. Alright, so those are my thoughts on how the PlayStation 5 and the Xbox Series X will impact the Nintendo Switch for the foreseeable future. I think a lot of people are overhyping the downfall of the Nintendo Switch with these systems, because obviously these systems are more powerful, but I don't really foresee Nintendo's momentum really dying down all that much because of the myriad of factors that I just brought to the table with you guys. So let me know in the comment section down below whether you agree with me on this sentiment or disagree with me. Do you think that the PlayStation 5 and the Xbox Series X are going to cast a negative shadow over the Nintendo Switch? Do you think that a lot of games won't end up coming to the system? Is Nintendo just coasting, or do you sort of see things in my perspective? And as always, guys, thank you so much for watching this video. If you're new to the channel, make sure you subscribe and turn on notifications. Be sure to check out other videos on the channel as well, and as always, I will catch you guys on the next one. Later.